is really a top expert on branding. And I think she's probably worked with over 1,000 of my clients. We were talking the other night, it might be even closer to 3,000. I haven't been counting, but just for several years. And what she sees when people are putting together their brand or their image, they make a lot of mistakes. And so she's going to share some of those with you. Now, you probably have heard me talk about the story of Dr. Ish Major, a psychiatrist who was in Quantum Leap, came to our summit, met the media, learned how this whole game works, worked with Mary, and got on the Today Show because everything fit together. They looked at him and they said, we want you. That's what you want. You want to get everything in alignment. And because he was also prepared, he did a great job. He got invited back again and again. I think he's been on like 9 times now, and things have just been taken off higher and higher. Well, imagine and we look forward to this day for you, where now he's going to be on the Today Show yet again, and he says to his coach, hey, why don't you come on with me? All right, and he says he brings Mary on to the Today Show. In fact, we're going to let you see a clip of the Today Show that aired recently with Ish Major, Quantum Leap member, and his coach in this regard, Mary Giuseffi.
From NBC News, this is Today with Kathy Lee Gifford and Hoda Kotb.
We've all been there. You meet someone new or you run into an old friend. One of you goes in for the hug, the other the handshake.
Oh, God. This time of year, that can lead to a lot of awkward greetings. So here to fill us in on when to embrace the embrace and what that all means is psychiatrist Dr. Ish Major.
Love him.
And relationship expert Mary Giuseffi.
Love her, too.
Uh-huh.
And Mary, since we're just meeting you, should we hug you?
Absolutely.
She gave us a hug, and she actually gave me a little kiss on the cheek.
So it can get awkward.
Yes,
do you think you have to have some sort of history with the person before you hug them, or can you just go right on in?
Well, you know what? Sometimes you need a little history, sometimes not. What I say is, depends on who you're doing the meeting with. If 2 men, 2 women, do what feels comfortable. Man and a woman, I always say follow her lead. Whatever she offers you, hand, hug, cheek, that's what you accept.
What do you think, Mary, about that?
Well, I think especially if you're a single woman and you're approaching a couple. If you're approaching a couple, it's really important for the woman to contact with the woman first. It shows respect for her and the relationship, and it becomes very non-threatening. So if the woman wants to give you a hug, you can give her a hug. You can then mirror that with the husband. If she does the hand, then you know that's her safety. Then you shake the man's hand.
I always go in for, you know what? I always go in, and here's the thing, very rarely can I remember someone like either pulling back, or it's very unusual, I think, for someone to react that way. I just don't like sometimes hugs that linger.
And get a little
on the back, and you're like, weird. Okay, what are you doing?
They wanted me to demo stuff.
But so how long should a normal hug last? Just like you're crazy.
So, you know, a normal hug, you're talking anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds. Okay. Like, oh, you can do this, you can do a couple of pats.
But you shouldn't be counting. Well, it should be a natural thing.
It should be a natural thing.
Feeling it. But there's a point where you know it's enough. You know, it's the 1, 2, 3 out.
But there are people that don't know when it's enough. And you go in for your nice little hug, and that guy or something grabs you to him, and he just gets in there.
Sure. And sometimes, Kathy, you have to announce it. You have to say, listen, I'm a hugger or I'm not a hugger. And that way you know the attentions are clear.
You know what I don't like the half hug, the going in and the pat, pat, pat.
Yes, yes.
That to me, you might as well just shake hands.
Well, you know, with 2 women that do that, it's either about the makeup, you know, or it's about, I'm really not your friend, but let's just go through the motions. But when a guy and a girl do, that's the kiss of death. When a guy and a girl, you want to show the kiss of death?
Okay, let's do the kiss of deth.
The kiss of death hug
is, wait, are you a couple or not?
We're
friends?
We're friends right
now.
He's hoping that maybe we'd be a couple, but I'm definitely saying we are never going to be a couple. Then it's like this.
Such a great evening.
Hips away, hips away.
We just back that right out.
Okay.
Yeah, and we know why.
Okay, so that's
nothing about Ish. He's an adorable guy.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so guys should read that.
For a guy, that's the kiss of death. That means
like
there is
wants nothing to do with it.
And so with the hug, it communicates so much. And so in that situation, a hug, the amount of contact the hug has indicates how much contact there may be later.
What do you you do in a situation like mine at home, Hoda Woman? We've talked about this, where I'm a hugger, I'm very tactile. My husband goes crazy if I'm hugging somebody that he doesn't know.
Yeah, some people read more into it than it is.
Yeah, hello, like a book.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, we read that from our partners, you know, and they just have to get used to us. We're a hugger. I'm a hugger. I've always been a hugger, and I'm going to hug anybody I want to hug. And if my partner doesn't accept that, well, he's got to get used to that, because I can't change that behavior easily.
I think so.
I can't change him now, can I?
No, it's
it's who you are and it's who he is, and so you just have to, it's one of those things you just accept.
All right, I feel better now. Thank you. Great to see you guys.
So here to give you the mistakes to avoid in building your brand, please stand, rise for Mary Giuseffi.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, Steve, for putting me up here today. And I hope that we can chat about a few things that are going to be relevant to you. You know, there's so many things that we could share, and I look forward to working with each of you individually about creating a brand for you, a durable brand. But I thought today we'd talk a little bit about the mistakes, because, you know, honestly, I've learned much more from my mistakes than I ever learned from my successes. Can anybody resonate with that? You know, whenever I did a good job, people would say, "That was great, thanks." And whenever I did something wrong, I got, you know, a dissertation. Remember to take notes on your dissertation, because the dissertation is where the magic is. That's where you really understand what it takes to get to the next level. And in our industry, in the media business, which I've been in for 40 years, oh no, it's more than 40. God, that's scary. You know, the number keeps creeping up. When that happens, you have to really, you know, take hold of the fact. And, you know, Steve was saying to me last night when we were chatting, he said, "Mary, how many years were you with Ford?" And I said, "Well, I was with Ford about 35 years. I started when I was 1. No, I started when I was with him 35 years. And he said, "Well, how did you major? You know, what happened that you could stay with that industry that's so fleeting for that many years?" I really had never thought about it, but I guess the couple things that I did was I had stamina. Okay, so this is one of the things that people don't understand about getting in this industry. It is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It is a marathon. If you don't have a passion, a driving passion, and a force bigger than you, keeping you focused on your journey, you might as well get off now, because it is a marathon. The other thing that happened is that I was really stubborn. I just refused to quit. I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of lonely time saying, "What's wrong with my brand?" We didn't even know what branding was then. But I never quit. And the last thing that I can share with you, which is so important right now with media as rapid fire as it is that somehow I stayed relevant. Relevancy is really important. What is trending today in your topic? Because when you work with the media, the one thing that they know is immediately, it's an instinct. Does this person watch my show? Mistake 1 to 1. I want to be on the Today Show. Well, have you ever seen the Today Show? Well, no, I don't watch TV. Really? Wow. Let me know how that works for you. Not going to get on because you don't understand the habits, the conversation, and the topics that trend on that show currently. And the second thing is keep your ear to the wire. You know, I was watching TV. I watch NBC because, you know, the other thing is you got to be loyal to the people that are loyal to you, right? NBC has picked me up. So thrilled. We'll be back next week shooting a segment on something else that you should all watch. It's going to be fun, I hope. And the point is that I was watching TV Sunday morning, and a cardinal was on. You know, I'm a Catholic kid. And I was like, what the heck? He's on Meet the Press. So I watched Meet the Press, and I thought, all right, let me see what I'm going to learn from this. This is really cool. He was a really cool guy. And, you know, Catholic Church is changing. And the story ended with, you know, Pope Francis, what his mission is, there are a few, but the one I want to share with you, his real big mission is he's returning luster. Luster, what a great word, to the Catholic Church. So guess what that really means? The Pope is rebranding the Catholic Church. And how can he rebrand the Catholic Church successfully. You can only rebrand something that is a durable brand. And I don't know about you, but I think it's been around a few hundred years. So you see, when you build a durable brand, then you have the ability to constantly go back in and renew and refresh, okay? So I've got to put my glasses on because I promised I'd be on time, and I actually took notes, which is amazing. Now if I can read them, we'll be in good shape. So, you go through your life and icons come up. And the first icon that I had the pleasure of knowing without ever really meeting was one of the few, was Andy Warhol. Does anybody know who Andy Warhol is? Okay. So, Andy Warhol is getting smarter every year that I'm alive. And, now there's like all kinds of museum things he's going to, and I'm a groupie now. Well, when I was living in New York as a model with Ford, first apartment I had there, I was 19. It was punk rock era was coming in big, big time. And I used to hang out in this little place because there were no cell phones. Remember those days? And so we all used to get our calls if we were really cool. We got our calls in like our little local place, So 67 Irving Place, and there I was with my girlfriend. We were a little band of merry and very, very poor people. And we could afford a cup of coffee. Well, Andy Warhol and his little band used to hang out at the table next to us. So it was Andy and us. And it was Andy and us every day for months. And I never approached Andy because I had nothing to say to him because he was odd. But what I learned about his brand was that, man, it was durable because everybody that sat at Andy's table looked just like Andy. And I didn't fit the picture. I didn't fit the brand, so I had nothing to say. But I watched him and I observed him, and he was quite an interesting guy. So the point is, he said something that now has come true all these years after his death. He said that in the future, everyone would be famous for 15 minutes. And guess what? Everybody is. And guess why everybody has the ability to be famous? Because of the internet, because of social media. So you all are now, what are you doing? You're vying for position to become famous, hopefully, for longer than 15 minutes. But keep that in your mind. The mistake is, in order to remain relevant and trending, know that every 15 minutes, somebody's going to be famous. Is it going to be you? So, okay. The number one mistake that people make about their brand is they say one thing. It's all about me. A brand is not about you guys. It's Lego my ego. Remember that ad, Lego my ego, the waffle commercial? Well, this is Lego your ego. The brand is not about you. The brand exists in the room. The brand is for the people that you're talking to. It's not about you. So when I work with people and they say, I never wear black, never and always, not a good thing, okay? I never wear black. I always wear black. I would never do something like that. I always do things like this. I love to wear suits. I can't imagine ever being on that show or saying that. Well, that's not what I had in mind. Well, that's not what I'm going to do here. Well, good. Go to your room, hang out, put on whatever you like. Talk to yourself. It's a brand that will last forever for you. You have to become teachable, and you have to develop a brand from what the outside world needs from you. Okay? I learned a really hard, Steve always says, tell stories, tell stories. So do you want me to tell a story or two? Okay. So, I wanted to be a model from birth. And I was very diligent. I had my bag packed by my door, and everybody that I met, all of my life, I said, do you know anybody that could get me into modeling? I'm not kidding you, at 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. Finally, 11 years old, somebody showed up at my house. This guy, he's a very nice man. He sat next to me. Of course, I think my dad set this up, and because he got tired of hearing about it. And we were having dinner, and the gentleman says to me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a model. Do you know anybody in that industry? And he said, as a matter of fact, I do. My next door neighbor is Eileen Ford. My bags are packed. I am ready to go. So I get there, and she, you know, she's very sweet and kind, and the first thing she told me was I had to lose 25 pounds. That's another story. But anyway, eventually I starved and got it, and I got in there, and I was rocking and rolling, baby, but I was an expert on me. I was 11. So she says that, you know, there's a scale when you walk in and a measuring stick against the wall, and it is rule by intimidation. That's what her industry was, her business was, and she was the best. She came up to me, and she's real little, so she comes up to me, and she says to me, millions of girls want this opportunity, okay, millions. She says, you know, I have an idea for you. This is Eileen Ford. I have an idea for you. I said, yes, Mrs. Ford. Yes, Mrs. Ford. She said, you would be a great soap opera queen. I said, what? I was 11. You'd be awesome on the soap operas. We know people. Of course she knows people. She's Eileen Ford. We know people. We can do that. And I looked at her with absolute reverence, respect, and humility. And I said to her, I can still see myself. I said to her, Mrs. Ford, I'm a very serious actress. I don't do soap operas. And she looked at me, as only Eileen could. And she looked at me up and down and said, and so you shan't. And she turned around and walked away. And she didn't speak to me for 6 months, and I never got an audition for a soap opera. So what happened? Let go my ego, baby. Here is this woman offering me a universal opportunity, and at 11 years old, I'm an expert on my brand. I'm not going to be a soap opera. No, I never was. Never was. So you see, we have to let go of our ego and become teachable and understand how your brand and your message can be relatable from the outside in. So that's number one lesson. Number two, you know, people always say, especially right now, because we are a lot of baby boomers that are in our, you know, our third act, and you know, we're gonna be dragging until we die, baby. We are not leaving, okay? And I'm one of you, and we're one of us, and you know, they're gonna drag me out of here. So we have to keep reinventing ourselves. And number two mistake people say is that I used to be this, but now I'm that. And I can't use any of what I used to be because I don't want to be known as that anymore. I am now an expert in this. And I'd say, well, what makes you an expert in that? I'm good at it. I said, okay, great. What else makes you an expert in that? Well, I don't know. You know, I read a lot of books, and I'm pretty smart, and I'm a quick study, and you know, I think I could teach people about this subject over here. But you see, they're giving up their credibility. So the mistake that we need to really control the idea is that your history cannot remain a mystery. In your branding, a durable brand is a huge, multifaceted gemstone. So when we want to go into another field, we must be rooted in our training. That is the key to the kingdom, because you will become more relatable if you have a history, and you have a little bit of street credibility that you can bring forward into your new career. So let me see. I have all these stories now that I don't normally tell. The next thing that I'd like to share with you is that most people, when I ask them, what is your unique value proposition? They have no idea. They have no idea what is really unique about who they are. You must have something special, or you wouldn't be in this room. What is that special thing that you can hold on to and share that nobody else has? And how can you make that a teachable moment for someone else? That is your unique value proposition. That's where we begin your brand. Another great story, you know, because I was such a teachable young girl myself. So now I'm 20, I'm still very rebellious. And I was still with Ford. I just don't know how that happened, actually. But now I was in Chicago. So now I was with David and Lee, who was purchased by Ford later on in their lives. And again, now I'm a rebel because now I'm an artist. You see, I hadn't learned my lesson the first time. So I gave up being a soap opera queen because I was a serious actress. And now I'm trying to be a serious model, but I'm not branding myself, so I refuse to wear makeup. I wear caftans, sandals, and my hair in a braid. And I don't know about you, but most models, you know, that's not the way you should show up to things. But I wanted people to understand about me that I was an artist who just happened to be a model at this moment. So I was at a cast party, and there were a few famous people there. And my agent took one look at me, and she was like, oh, my God, this girl's never going to learn, you know. Her money's going to run out. She's going to go back to New Jersey because this is not going to work for her. So there I am, and the most famous person in the room that night was Bill Cosby. And all these girls are like all over him, you know, and oh, disdain, oh, gross. So I was hanging out with my caftan. A little bit later, I feel this tap on my shoulder. It's Bill. And he says to me, do you have $1? I was like, they're all so weird, you know. I said, yeah. He said, do you like pizza? I was like, even weirder than I thought. I said, yeah. He goes, let's go. So we had dinner. So my plan worked. I was so odd that I just piqued his curiosity, okay. Plus, he really wanted to get out of there, and he figured I wasn't too much of a threat because, you know, I had a caftan on, and obviously I didn't get why I was there. So we went for dinner for 3 hours. And he was just an amazing human being, incredible, stellar soul and character. And the lesson that I learned from him was this. He said, you know what? You need to go back to New York where people get you. I realized that he got through to me. You see, I didn't want to play by the rules of the game, so I wasn't in the game. You see, I wasn't branding myself correctly. Well, listen to me. I went back to New York, and I worked every day until I retired. Every day. Because guess what? I took that caftan off. I put on what I needed to wear. I did my makeup. I did my hair. And I didn't say stupid things anymore. I learned my line. I realized that the agents didn't care how much I knew. Actually, it was worse if they knew that I had any brain at all. I just stood there and shut up and smiled. And I worked all the time because I understood what I was doing there, what my proposition was, what my brand was, and I didn't confuse them. The media gets easily confused. They're a little ADHD. Stay in your lane and pay attention to what you need to do to become in the game instead of watching the game, you know? So you have to understand what that thing is that makes you unique, and then you have to package it in a way that can be receivable. Okay, another thing that I hear is you spend all the time, oh my God, I bought all these programs and I love it, and I've spent money on my website, and I have this book, and I have these cool things, and and people spend 90% of their resources on stuff, and 10% they leave to marketing themselves. Well, have you ever bought a product that there wasn't a commercial for? You've got to invest in your commercial. You know, if you could have the greatest product service in the world, but if nobody knows about you, who's going to buy you? On a sports team, I would rather have the guy with a little less talent, a lot of dedication, and is constantly out there in the crowd. He knows to be out there. I know about him. Than the guy who's the most gifted, talented player that I've ever seen in my life that has no profile in the public at all. You don't know about him. He doesn't get to the audition. He can't do that because he doesn't have any money for bus fare. Invest in the commercial. And guess who the commercial is? It brings me to the next point. You are your commercial for your brand. You. The book's great, but who's going to sell the book? You. Invest in your commercial. You're learning how to pitch. You need to learn how to be on camera. Everything is video now. You know, the resources are such that studies show that in the old days, people like to read. The old days were not that long ago. Last year, the studies proved that people like to read a little bit, but mostly now we just want to see stuff. This year's statistics is reading's gone. We just want to see stuff. So if the world is purely visual, and it is, it takes less than a second to have a first impression. It's totally visual, totally nonverbal. You have to be the person in that package that can deliver your commercial succinctly and dynamically. So invest in your commercial. Okay, so always a bridesmaid, never a bride. You're standing there and you're ready to say something. And you know you're almost ready. You're almost ready. You're the bridesmaid. You got your little bouquet, you're going up the aisle, you're looking right to left, you're imagining what it might be to be the bride. But you don't have the courage to say, I do. Say I do to yourself and your ideas, because there's never a perfect moment. As a matter of fact, the better you get at this, the more you realize that the beauty and the genius is in your imperfection. But you just have to become perfectly imperfect. Perfectly imperfect. Take a chance on that for yourself. When I first started wearing glasses, it was very hard for me because I was a little bit older wearing glasses. Like I was in my mid-40s before I needed them. And I went to my audition. So I was always used to reading the prompter, used to reading the cue cards. It never dawned on me that I couldn't see the darn things. So, of course, I'm on deck, which means if any of you go to the Publicity Summit, on deck means you're the next one to go in, so you're supposed to be in this zen moment. Me, panicked. What am I going to do? I can't read the cue cards. So I spent the whole time doing this. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Well, the director finally said, Mary, stop. I'm getting seasick. Can you read the cue cards? No. Put on your glasses. Deal with it. So, a perfectly imperfect moment, right? At that moment, I had to buy into the fact that I was sort of getting blind. And then make it part of your act. See the red. Make it part of your act, okay? Are you enjoying this? Are you learning anything? Okay. Thank you. The other thing is that people tell me all the time that they have a bunch of brands. Now, mind you, they haven't built one brand yet. But, you have a lot of ideas. I love idea people, and you are all amazingly talented, gifted idea generators. But there is no such thing in the world of personal branding as multiple brands, unless you have multiple personalities. Then we'll talk later. I got a program for you. But there is no such thing as a multiple brand, because guess what happens when you have a multiple brand? It's sort of like a wheel. Have you ever seen a wheel without the center? What happens to those spokes? They have nothing to connect to. The wheel does not move. Okay, so when we call a durable brand creation, we're talking about creating the center part of that wheel. And that center part is the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's everything that's fabulous about what you are. It's everything that is teachable and relatable about what you are. And it is also the skeletons in your closet. Some of those skeletons come out to be really shining stars, and some of them you just pray never come to the surface. But in building your durable brand, you have to know your weaknesses before you start building that brand, so you build in redundancy. So many of you do have various spokes on your wheel. You are the connector of the dots. I had someone there, and oh my God, I'm so I got so many things, and I do this thing, and then I got this other thing, and then in here, I got this thing. And how do I put them all together? I said, well, you're standing in front of me. You exist as a durable brand. You're one person. So there is a rhyme or reason to how all of the pieces that you have fit together. Let's start with that. Concentrate on building one durable brand. What comes to mind is Martha Stewart, for me, and Paula Deen. You all know the fiasco of Paula Deen, and I really study that because when you see something crumble as rapidly as that did, there has to be a reason. And so for me, I was like, okay, what is the reason why this woman went to federal prison and was landlocked, and when she got out of that, she was twice as big as she was before she went in. And we still don't like her, but we love her stuff. And this poor woman over here, whatever happened to her, she did something, and it is over. In one day, she lost all of her sponsorships, da-da-da. Guess why? She did not understand the durability of her brand. Martha Stewart is a very smart cookie. And she understood going in that at some point people would find out that she is not that nice. But it doesn't matter because she's great. And she created a product that sustains without her, as we all found out. And she also built in the redundancy of us not really caring that much, whether we liked her or not, because we were going to buy her stuff anyway. Paula Deen, unfortunately, did not understand what her unique value proposition was. And that unique value proposition for her is that she's a Southern girl, ate a lot of stuff, all tastes good, wasn't so good for her. I love her recipes, don't get me wrong. I actually still buy her magazines, and because I think she's amazing. But what she didn't realize was that she has a certain social moire, a certain cultural overlay, and we all have them, that was going to travel with her. And unless the people around her really understood that they had to work that social moire out, that prejudice, that bias, in her branding from the beginning, that someday just something stupid was going to catch her and bite her in the butt. And that was going to be the end. And it was. So it's important when we do create brands that you create a durable brand and make your weaknesses into assets early. I'm not saying do an expose, but understand your weaknesses and be prepared to turn them into assets if the moment arrives. You know, the other thing that I love is that everybody thinks that every media opportunity is a great opportunity. You know, and especially for those of us in this industry where we know that media opportunities are rich, because what do? They give us exposure. And if we have a product, you know, the last time I was on the Today Show, unfortunately, my new book, which has gotten rebranded before it even got branded the first time, because as a branding expert, of course, I didn't brand it right. My book wasn't ready to sell. And so my social media people were going crazy because the minute I got on the Today Show, people were Googling me and they wanted to order this book. Hundreds and hundreds of people, 30 million people watched the Today Show. 30 million, it's a lot. And I knew going in that this was going to happen, and I wanted to go just to beyond, because what I'm doing is I'm reestablishing myself in front of the camera. That's my MO. I don't care about selling anything. It'll come. For me, that's my MO. So, but for you all, it's important to know, you know, what it is that you want from your entry into the media. Yes, 5 minutes. So the story goes like this, that not every opportunity that you get in the media is going to be worth it to you, and know enough to walk away. You know, walk away. I had an audition, and I was a big girl now. I got myself organized. It was like I was in my 40s, and I was working in Florida, which is a very small market, media market, but they're really very egocentric. And I go into this audition. I already didn't like this guy. I go into the audition, you know, and he says, "How old are you?" Now, of course, I know I'm over 40, you know. And I said, "I'm 42 years old." He said, "You are not 42 years old," because he's used to everybody lying. And I said, "No, I really am 42 years old." He said, "You don't look like it to me." And I said, "Well, what do I look like to you?" And he said, "You look like my next ex-wife." And I looked at him, I said, "Well, guess what? That position is closed, so I guess we're done." And I walked out. You got to know when to fold them. Okay, Ish, my dear friend and colleague, you know, we're co-branding now as relationship experts in certain markets. I've been working with him for 3 years, and I've been managing his career for 3 years, and we've done a lot of good stuff, and we've pulled away a lot of stuff. So he calls me one day, my last story, and he says, "Oh my God, Mary, it's finally happened." I'm like, okay, he's excited. What's happening? Viacom has called. Viacom is huge. Do you know who Viacom is? They own everything. Viacom is offering me an opportunity. I'm very skeptical. I said, really? What kind of opportunity is it? Well, you know, I'm a psychiatrist, and they got this country western singer, and she's on a reality show, and she has a drug problem, and you know, they want me to, you know, be her doctor, and you know, I'll be in the crew, and I think I'm going to get my own show. And I said, no. He said, no. I said, no. I said, this is a bomb waiting to go off. This woman is going to commit suicide. They are now pulling you in to be the fall guy because they're not invested in you. You are in the crew. You're never going to get a show. And the answer is no. And he looked at me and said, if you had told me 3 years ago that Viacom was going to offer me an opportunity and I was going to say no, I would have never believed you. But I will say no. They wouldn't take no for an answer. It took us 3 emails, and finally I was on my tippy toes. But we said no. A week later, I get a text message. Oh my God, she committed suicide. How do you know these things? And guess what? I won't mention his name. He's a very famous psychiatrist. He is getting the fall, man. He's out. His career's over. He's done. We're never going to hear from him again. How did you know that? I said, because I know my industry. Not every opportunity is a good opportunity. He would have been dead in the water. His name would have gone up once as the person that over-medicated, under-medicated, didn't do the proper crisis intervention. His 15 minutes of fame would have been 30 seconds. And he would never have been on that stage again. And that psychiatrist, you've never heard from him again. He is gone. And he's huge. And the poor girl is gone. Because there was no saving her. They were looking for a life raft for their psychiatrist talent. So not every media opportunity is the right one. Make sure it lines up with your brand. Make sure that you're being treated with respect. Understand where the next opportunity is. You know, be loyal to your brand. And I'll see you soon, and I can't wait to see you on camera.
Let me get a picture with you here. That's great. Welcome. Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you're going to be able to get a 1-hour consult with Mary. You may choose to do more beyond that, but I definitely want you to put on your action form, have my consult with Mary, because she can really take you to a whole nother level. So that's awesome.